Awesome. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have you here. My name is Danielle. I'm one of the co-founders for Austin Design Week, and welcome to day 2. I would love to hear from you in the chat. If you want to say hello, let us know if you've been to any events yet so far, what those have been. If you haven't been to an Austin Design Week event yet, I welcome you here. And I encourage you to check out all the events that are happening this week. You can see the schedule with that bit.ly link right there. I also encourage you to connect with us on social media. You can hashtag ADW20, hashtag embrace, and follow along with the conversation that's happening there. Marissa, you can go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, I think there's one previous speech to this. Awesome, great, thank you. If you haven't already, I also encourage you to join the Austin Design Week Slack workplace. So that's a place where everyone can gather throughout the week. We have a hashtag community channel where you can share what you've learned, you can connect with other attendees, and we also share important announcements. And all week events are happening, they're free. So we really encourage you again to check out the schedule and join us for more. And then finally, next slide. Great. I want to say a big thank you to our generous sponsors for making this year happen. Without them, we could not provide this free every year to attendees. This is the 5th annual Austin Design Week. So again, I want to welcome you. I want to mention too that finally at the end of the event, you'll be asked to fill out a brief survey, and we'd love to hear from you. And I will in just a second pass it over to our amazing moderator to get this started. I'm particularly excited about this event. It's being held by Michael Schuh's Office of Architecture, who is one of our advisory board members this year. And there's a great panel lineup happening today. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Marissa to kick things off.
Thanks so much, Danielle. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marissa Grande. I'm a registered interior designer and a senior associate at Michael Schuh Office of Architecture, and I'll be moderating our panel today. I'm so excited to be here with you, wherever you may be listening from, and to share this space with some truly visionary Austin designers who have all played a big role in shaping our city. I hope hearing these voices today gives you inspiration and a new lens for the built environment. The discussion today aims to shine a light on how folding the work of craftspeople and visual art into the practice of interior design and architecture causes those built environments to be elevated just from place into really an experience. Really having a multitude of voices and diverse expression really creates a richness of space and really a complete space. And that's why we're so interested in this topic. It's such a relevant topic to everyone, and our lives revolve around space and the built environment. So today I want to just ask you to take a moment and reflect on, so many of our spaces are closed now, office buildings, restaurants, and bars. And I would just encourage you to take a minute and think about the spaces that you miss most and what it is about those spaces that really kind of spoke to you and made you want to be there. And let's see if any of those attributes align with what our guests have to share with us today. How and why they put craft and experience at the forefront of their process is why we're here today. So just as an overview, we're going to begin with a brief introduction to each of the panelists, after which we'll start with Michael Schuh, and I'll hand it off to each of them to show their work in a little bit more detail and discuss their philosophy in a little more depth. And finally, we'll conclude with the slide presentation and open up for discussion, where I'll pose some of the questions from the chat to the group. So right now, I would just say, take a minute and think about what you'd like to get out of this discussion. Maybe write down a couple questions for yourself, and just remember that I'll be taking questions from the chat. So to begin, our first artist is Valerie Wolfe. She's an Austin-based designer, and she's been transforming spaces with flowers and natural materials since 2014. Her artistry seeks to encapsulate beauty in all seasons of life, and the intricate and ephemeral qualities of her work emphasize the importance of the environmental preservation and seeks to showcase the ways in which humans interact with our world. Shay Little is one of the co-founders of Big Medium and continues to serve as the executive director, overseeing artistic vision, direction, and operations for the organization and all its programs, including West and East Austin art tours. Nathan Warner is a co-founder of Warbach an internationally recognized lighting studio based in Austin. Unfortunately, Nathan won't be joining us today, but we'll still be featuring their work in the presentation. And they consistently produce one-of-a-kind, large and small lighting installations, and have been a close collaborator of our firms for years. And finally, Michael Shu. He is the he's the founder and principal of Michael Shu Office of Architecture, a fully integrated architecture and interior design firm. The office was founded in Austin in 2005 and opened a second studio in Houston in 2018. He's currently the member of the University of Texas School of Architecture Advisory Council and is the immediate past president of AIA Austin. And with that, I'll hand it off to Michael to begin.
Great, thanks, Marissa. I think we can forward, yeah, there we go. And we can shoot to the next slide. And there's all our participants who you'll be seeing on screen. And just a quick introduction to our office. We're an office of about 55 architects and interior designers, working with a lot of craftspeople, and this is just a little bit of the work that you may know from places you've been in town, things from Home Slice to South Congress Hotel and the Line Hotel in Laurel on South Lamar. And you'll start to get glimpses of the work and the craftspeople that we'll be highlighting here in the coming slides. Something that's really important to our office is that we believe that design is for everyone. And in our belief of that, requires that we really choose carefully the people we want to work with, that we have a diverse and broad sort of spectrum of people that we work with, the artists and the fabricators, and also the places. That previous slide was Springdale General and Canopy Art Studio Complex. And then we will shoot through some of these things, and it'll be a little quick. The first slide is Laurel. We worked with Joe Sweck, who's based in Austin, and he does hand-painted signs and also does murals and just does incredible work. Joe's someone we worked with for a long time back when he was in Sodalitas. And then the next slide you'll see is an interior of the project that all the furnishings here and the light fixtures were all made for the project. Litmus Industries made all the custom furnishings. They're based here in Austin. You'll see a lot of their work in the coming slides. Hand Eye Studio did the pendants that were made for the space, and they're based in London. So we enjoy working with folks from all over. The next slide is Understory in Houston. It's in a large office building. We work with Nathan and Buck at Warbach Lighting to create this really incredible art installation piece that in some places it's over 100 feet long. It is sort of a computer design hanging bead chain sculpture with integrated LED lights that floats in this space, and you can see it from the street in Houston. It was really an accomplishment for both studios to have that installed. And then we'll go to the next project, 5th and West, which is a condominium project on oh, did we skip one? I think we did. We skipped that last slide, which shows Warbach's light features in Fairground, which is downtown at 2nd and Congress. I think that slide on the left is really incredible. That fixture is hung all the way from the ceiling and installed in this old 1980s sort of design lobby. And then the next project is 5th and West. The sort of thread, the red and blue piece you see on the wall is by Nikki Schroeder, a German multimedia artist that lives in LA right now. And just to the right, you'll see a piece, it's a curtain that was designed and fabricated by Bei Indefong, who is a Laotian designer whose family comes from a textile business. So they have this very traditional business, but they're highly innovative thinkers. That curtain is made out of woven silk and brass thread. So really incredible curtain and adds a lot of interest to this lobby space. we work with a lot of visual artists in our spaces as well. On the back wall is the work of Felice House, the sort of portrait sketches that you see. She's also based in Austin, and she works on notions of power and gender specifically through her work, and we really love the way it fits in the space. And then the smaller pieces that you see were done by Lamar Mathurin, who is also known as Nimbus Black, a Black artist based in Austin. And he does incredible work. Those were caricature sketches that fill up a wall of one of the rooms in the lobby space. That little lamp there is from Entler Studios. It's a cast concrete light fixture made out of a small studio in Los Angeles. This is higher up in the building, and we created this space specifically for this Michael Wilson piece, the large table that you see. Michael Wilson is an incredible woodworker and artist that has a studio in Wimberley. He's a Japanese-American artist, and he's been working all over the world, and his pieces actually not a lot of buyers are in Austin. It usually goes out of state and even out of the country. He's very sought after. But the way he works with wood, how organic it is, and the sort of inspiration that he gets from his cultural heritage is really rich and incredible. And the next images you'll see is more of Michael's work at the Line Hotel. This is at the bar at Arlo Gray, and Michael did everything that you see in black there, from the custom stools that were sort of carved and hewn to the bar top, to the sort of ceiling you even see in that space. I think the next few slides are, the next slide is a detail of the bar that he created, which I think is just stunning, the way he goes about this. And it's very free form. He just starts with a piece of wood and is just carving and shaping as he goes, and ends up with these really phenomenal details. And then you'll see more of his work at the coffee shop there. And then moving on is someone we've worked with for a long time, which is Articulture, who works in living walls and botanicals. And, we've enjoyed working with this studio. And the next slide shows you a detail of this piece that was done a few years ago at the Shake Shack on South Lamar. Something a little bit more fun, a little less serious, is Home Slice on North Loop, their second location. We've worked with these owners for a long time. And they really believe in a strong collaboration with a lot of artists and makers. So we love this process. On the front of the building, you'll see Evan Voile's work. Evan's a longtime Austin resident. You may know him from the neonjungle.com and his sort of space on South First Street. He's been a custom sign maker in Austin for about 20 years or so, and we've worked with him the entire time, and he does incredible work. The hand-painted sort of oil enamel signage you see on the windows is by Gary Green. He's also based in Austin. And on the inside, you'll see the work of Tony Romano, who sort of upcycles and does reclaimed work in furnishings and graphic design. He created the bar, everything that you see on the sort of left slide there. That's just incredibly fun stuff. And you see all the sort of craftsmanship and handwork in his work. And then the mural in the dome was created by Abraham Mong, who is a Asian American artist that does sort of murals that have a real sort of street vibe to them that we enjoy. And this project is Plaza Saltillo, that you might know. It's on the east side on 5th Street. This mural was done by Carmen Rangel and Kimi Flores. San Marcos mural on the San Marcos side of the street. It was really inspired by the culture and history of East Austin, sort of celebrates and radiates a sort of strong feminine, Latin, and Afro-American sort of heritage. And we really enjoyed working with them. And then the next slide you'll see is a piece that Ryan Runcie did. He calls it the Masontown mural. This was done in collaboration and curated by Raisin McIntosh, and then their group on the east side that does a lot of sort of social work. And it really tells a story about Masontown in East Austin, which was a freedmen's community. A lot of people don't know about it. That existed in the late 1960s. The mural subject matter shows Sam and Relford Mason, who were brothers, depicted in the mural, and their sort of businesses and work in East Austin in Masontown in the 19th century. And Ryan is an important African-American muralist, and it's always nice to have sort of art featured on buildings in this way. And then a little bit more on the interiors front. We work with a lot of artists who make small pieces. The light fixtures you see at the back of the space were made by Darmez, which is a lighting studio out of Canada. And then the next slide you'll see is cabinetry on the left-hand side by Litmus Industries, which is a suede covered cabinet with a marble top, and then those door pulls are custom bronze sort of pieces. The screen that you see on the right-hand side is white oak and brass that was also made by Litmus for the sort of nurses station in this clinic. And that they do incredible work, and you see a lot of their handiwork in our projects. This project sort of shows the work of Escobedo Studios. They're a builder, but they're also a custom shop. They built this fluted brass fireplace around that you see here. And in the next slide, you'll see the sort of custom CNC'd wall panels behind the stairwell there, those fine lines which wrap the entire kitchen. Steelhouse did the bronze guardrail there. And then Austin Architectural did the cabinets that you see on the left-hand slide. So that's a patinated copper cabinet. And then the cabinet in front is a sort of hand lacquered over wood, black piece of millwork. And those were sort of two really special pieces in this house. This will be an upcoming project in the Waterloo Greenway that will be unveiled next year. This is the family pavilion that the office designed. And that little sink piece you see in the middle there was, we collaborated with John Newbold on making that sort of sink. And I think we have a little shot of it in the next slide that sort of shows you, this sort of family sink, celebrating this idea of, just washing your hands and saying clean and making it a fun experience for adults and for kids when the park is unveiled. And I think this park is going to be really quite special, and it'll be such a surprise and a gift for Austinites when it's done. And I think we have a couple more slides of our Houston office that has some work of artists that we love using. Patrick Puckett's painting is on the left-hand side. Michael Wilson did those little bitty coffee tables that you see there at a carved wood root balls. And then Valerie Wolfe, who you'll see shortly here, her floral installation is overhead. And then Litmus Industries, again, did the table there with the sort of tube steel enamel legs underneath that we designed and worked with them on doing that. In our little conference room there, you'll see a portrait by Alma Hazer. She's a German artist based in London, and she really works with portraitures that have to do with folding paper and cut paper, and it has a sort of interesting play of depth and assembly inside of a portrait. And I think I'll leave it there and hand off to Valerie next.
Okay, hello everybody. Like Michael said, my name is Valerie Wolfe, and I am an installation artist and floral designer here in Austin. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today and thank Michael and your whole office for inviting me to participate. I'm really honored to be here and excited for the chance to present my work to all of you. So this is mentioned before, but I started my career as a designer. You can click to the next slide. Started my career as a designer in the event industry in 2014 when I founded a boutique floral design studio here in Austin called Davy Gray. Since then, we've specialized in producing large-scale events, mostly weddings, and that having that as a foundation for my work really allowed me the opportunity to fine-tune my work with like a very specific eye for detail. And it also really gave me a platform to work in a number of different spaces that have been well designed by various architects around the city. So if you'll actually shoot back up to the one just before this, the slide just before this. Oh, it's going the opposite direction. That's okay. Can you go back like two? Oh, next one. Okay, I think there might be one missing, but that's all right. I'll start here. Most of you might recognize this space. This is at South Congress Hotel, which is one of Michael Schuh's projects. This was a really important piece for me. It was done back in 2017, and it was the first chance that we had to play with suspended installations. And what's so special about this space in particular is that the architects and designers really thought through a lot of very cool built-in mechanisms that provide a designer like me an opportunity to come in and really reimagine the space for a specific client in mind. So you can see it was kind of used as the canopy for a ceremony, and then it transitioned into like a hovering chandelier over the dance floor, which is really cool. So next was actually one of my all-time favorite clients. It was, the wedding took place at Weather Up Bar in Austin, which unfortunately closed its doors last year, but hopefully everyone had a chance to experience that space. It's kind of an Austin gem. And so what I loved about this is just that the couple, the space provided a really unique and stylish backdrop for the couple. And then we came in with our florals and sort of decorated the exterior of the space and really kind of brought it to life with this client's vision in mind, and added a ton of color and texture and really kind of made it unique for them. Next one is a beautiful wedding that we did last year at Hotel Emma, which is in San Antonio. If anyone hasn't had the chance to see this space in person, it's a must. The architecture is sort of a mix of like old world classic meets like modern minimalism. And so I just loved how the industrial look of this courtyard really is like warmed up with the Saltillo tile and the terracotta elements. So for this couple, we didn't want to compete too much with that, and instead opted for a really muted color palette that kind of just seamlessly fit into the natural surroundings. And it really just ultimately, the final product just kind of felt like the design just was supposed to live in that space, which was really special. Next, this was one of my favorite concepts to dream up. Many of you in Austin will recognize this space. It's at Mercury Hall, which is actually also an early work of Michael's office. It's kind of become an Austin icon. Countless celebrations have happened within this space. And you'll see the top image, the top right image, shows how we brought the interior of the space to life for the couple's ceremony. This whole design actually was intended to go outside originally among this cluster of really beautiful live oak trees. And we had to pivot at the very last minute because of rain. And it really ended up being a very happy surprise to see how all of these elements came together in a designed space. I feel like it actually, in hindsight, could have potentially gotten really lost outside. And so to see the impact of it against those, you know, classic shiplap white walls was just really, really impactful, and made quite the statement. And what was really cool about it is that we already had plans for a table setup to go underneath it. So you'll see that top part of that arch ended up serving also dual purpose for the table during the reception. So lots of ways to sort of configure the space. It was very cool, very fun project to work on. Next, this design I'm really proud of. It was created at a space called the Vintage Round Top out in Round Top, Texas. It was this huge canopy that we created for over a 30-foot dining table. It was a private dinner party out at the space, and it has these really amazing old exposed wood beams that run the length of the room. And so we used those to suspend this natural canopy. It's really hard to kind of see the scale of this, but it's actually created from about 6 or 7 individual pieces that were all about 6 to 7 feet long. And they sort of zigzagged down the length of the room. And it just created this like amazing ambiance. You can see there on the top right for the dinner party with all the candles and the glow. And it was really magical. So next up is actually another one at South Corners Hotel. That kind of shows a little bit of the evolution of our work and kind of starting to create more sculptural pieces. So again, we used those incredible sort of eye hooks that are bolted into the ceiling to suspend these 3 individual sculptures that hung above the couple during their ceremony. And you can kind of see a theme. I like to dual purpose things. So after the ceremony, the chairs got moved out of the way and it ended up being a canopy for their dance floor, which was really cool. And I loved how this client ended up using the outdoor space. They really, the couple themselves love the hotel, South Corners Hotel. They had spent a lot of time there in their dating years. And so the space meant a lot to them. And so I love how they utilized kind of the full breadth of space available for them, which created just like this really amazing modern backdrop for their reception. And last but not least on the wedding showcase is a design that we created last fall at Prospect House. It's a venue located out in Dripping Springs. And this space is so impeccably designed. It's definitely worth a see if anyone has not had the opportunity to see it. We've been fortunate enough to work there a number of times over the last few years. And the white walls really create just like a blank canvas. So it's been so amazing to see this space literally get reimagined for every single event that happens within it. And similarly to some of the other spaces, the architects really were thoughtful about where some of the fixtures went. And because of those fixtures, it's really allowed designers like me to come in and kind of put their own stamp on it. So you can see on the right, on the left, there's this 12-foot weather vane that literally sits smack dab in the center of the reception hall. And it sort of spins, like it actually catches wind from the outside and up above. And so we used that to sort of anchor the space and create a suspended sculpture, flower sculpture that just sort of gently rotated above the reception. And then outside, what has now sort of become this iconic white square, it's kind of meant to look like a Polaroid snapshot. We brought that to life with a lot of native plants and seasonal elements. And I just really love this design and wanted to showcase Prospect House here. So, So all of this wedding work really kind of led me to, in 2018, it all kind of started to pay off. Up until this point, I had actually been working from a home studio. And, but in 2018, I actually partnered with my two sisters, Margot of Margot Wolfe Jewelry and Paula of Sister Wolfe Studio. And we came together to start a new collective. It's a working studio where we all produce all of our works out of. And you can see from the image on the left, it was just a quick little snap that one of my sisters took the very first time we toured the space. And it basically was kind of, little did I know, a moment that ignited a lot of inspiration for me, and reimagining my work and kind of starting to establish myself as more of an artist and use flowers as more of an artistic medium. I sort of walked in and looked up and knew that I wanted to do something with that expansiveness of the ceiling. So in later that year in 2018 for the East Austin Studio Tour, it was our first year to sort of present as a collective. And I created the first dried floral installation to be on display. And I wanted to, actually, will you go up one slide? Just click up one. I just wanted to challenge myself and my artistic abilities here. So this piece is about 17 feet long. It sits anywhere from about 12 feet to 18 or 19 feet in the air. So it kind of has like a gradient to it. And it was a really, big sort of personal challenge for me. And I'm super proud of the end result and the way that it's paid off in the end. So the following year for the 2019 East Austin Studio Tour, this piece still exists in our space, and it had had a year at that point to sort of continue the weathering process and the process of deterioration and decay. And that year in particular, the wildfires across the world were just blazing, and it was really disturbing for me to see. But I kind of looked at my piece as this piece of land that had continued to weather and dry. And so I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a conceptual approach to the work. And instead of taking it down and building a whole new piece for the tour, I decided to leave it there and kind of expand upon its story a little bit. And it's kind of hard to see. There's some, you can see kind of in the right top image in the very top corner, there's like some orange pieces. There's sort of this funnel of what was intended to be sort of like flame and fire, and then this extension that I created that is really sort of dark and ominous, and is meant to mimic sort of the wafting of smoke that comes off of the land when a fire breaks out. And so it was kind of in an effort to showcase humans' role in climate change. The materials themselves you can see they're kind of blues, like blue tones. They're actually dyed floral materials. So they're kind of like manufactured and man-made in that sense. And so I sort of wanted to tie that back to the natural piece sort of is being destroyed by the man-made elements. So, and then, so really this work is what invited the relationship to start between Michael's office and myself. So last year in 2019, we installed this really beautiful piece that I'm super proud of in Michael's new Houston office. So he approached me about the piece, and it was really kind of the jumping off point to hopefully starting to establish more relationships with architects and designers, and kind of exploring that role of being the artistic participant and working with the designers to really kind of collaborate and come together and create something that's really one of a kind. So that kind of brings me to where I am today. I'm sitting kind of somewhere in the middle between this fresh floral world and the dried and preserved floral world. And I'm really just looking forward to what the future holds, and hopefully more collaboration opportunities with designers and creation for public works of art. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all being here.
Thanks, Valerie. That was awesome. You add such an amazing layer of magic to all your projects.
Oh, thank you.
With that, I'll hand it to Shay with Big Medium. Shay, it's on to you.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. My name is Shay Little, and I not only run Big Medium, but I started my career in the art world as an artist, and I collaborated with a group called Soliciting. It's myself, Jana Sweck, and Joseph Phillips, and the three of us are the group that formed Big Medium, and that happened through the East Austin Studio Tour. But prior to us kind of going down this path of arts administration, we were artists making work. And we've had the great fortune of working with Michael and his firm and quite a few projects. And, you know, I do that work I have done that work as an artist, and I've done that work as an arts administrator with Big Medium. And it's always been such a pleasure to work alongside someone who understands design and art and the need for art integration into space. So this piece here is La Condesa. It's an oldie but a goodie. I haven't talked much about it. Very, very kind of old in my portfolio of work, but it's a 40-foot mural inside the restaurant at Second La Vaca, La Condesa, based on the district in Mexico City, and really just playing off of themes of street art and the layering that happens, the natural layering that happens in cities where you paint and you wheat paste and you create this dense, rich warmth. So this piece dominates the restaurant space and sits, as a massive wall that you see when you come across. And when I have the opportunity to talk to people who are not in the art world and they ask what I do, this is usually one I can point to and say, oh, well, you know, I've done art in the past, and that's something that I do. Very often they don't quite fully, non-art people don't always like go to a restaurant and say, oh, I saw the art and that was amazing. They think more about the food. Anyway, next slide. This is a derivation of La Condesa mural. The group at Amelie, their development in Mural on Aldrich, was intended to pay homage to the old airport. So it's hard to see, but the top panel is this long, elongated, like these are basically contrails out of the airplane that mimic the La Condesa style collaging of material coming out of airplanes. And, you know, I was conceptualizing this piece and thinking about how am I going to do another large scale collage of this nature. I was already pretty knee deep in Big Medium and kept making sketches, and they ended up letting me know that they were actually looking at it for a digital print to create wallpaper so that they could, you know, over the years reprint it if they needed to fit the space and go back in there. So I had the fun, unique challenge of trying to rebuild all of my work that I do in layering paint and texture and doing that in Illustrator, which was not easy, but I think turned out decently well. Next, please. This is Uchiko, and I think this is a really unique moment for me and my wife, Jana Sweck, as artists. We were actually approached to do this piece as Sodalitas, our collaborative group, and we went through multiple rounds of design, and we kept meeting with the group and really had a lot of different ideas and approaches, but couldn't land on the right thing until we saw the head chef Tyson Cole doodling in one of the meetings, and he kept drawing these concentric circles. And it just dawned on us that we had this one crazy project that we had been doing where we took paper and rolled it up and basically glued paper back into logs. It was kind of a funny project just to see what would happen if you tried to re-glue sheets of paper back into wood. And it turned out to create this beautiful pattern where you could take colored paper, glue it painstakingly into these logs, and then cut them into discs to show the wood grain or the rings. And so when we saw Tyson Cole doing that in one of the meetings, we said, hey, this might be the solution, and he loved it. It took us eons to make that happen. And it's, you know, I think it's interesting that it went into a sushi restaurant. It's not meant to look like sushi or be in the imitation of sushi. It just has this beautiful feeling to it. And I think Michael's office and the people behind the decision-making made a good choice. It's like La Condesa. It's kind of an iconic singular piece in the space. And we vowed never to do that ever again, and then did it again. And I guess that speaks a little bit to the memorable experience of art in a space. And we had a group who ate dinner at Uchiko, saw our work, and went to great lengths to track us down, and then not beg, but insist continually that we create a piece for their own home. And begrudgingly, I conceded and did it. And I love the process. I love making the work. It's just very painstaking to get to it. But again, you know, they felt so moved by what they saw at Uchiko that they had to have it in their own home. And that was a very great praise. Here is a project in downtown Austin. It's the Brazos Sound Project, commissioned through the Art in Public Places program, which receives a percentage of public works in the city. This was on Brazos. They were doing the Great Streets project to widen the sidewalks, change traffic flow. We had the opportunity to integrate our project into the infrastructure of the street, which I think is a really unique thing, to have artists come in, not at the total ground level, but at a place that allows them to actually run conduit and wires and cabling beneath the city. We had to work with Public Works and the traffic department and right away, and it was crazy. And none of those departments know what art is, or even what their own city department Art in Public Places is. But I think hopefully will end up being some unique project that lives in the city. At the end of it, basically it is just a sound piece, weird ethereal sound works. And we had such a cool opportunity to work with the city and have it kind of be from the ground up. Onward, and try to move a little bit quicker. Okay, so now we're transitioning into my work as an arts administrator through Big Medium. This is Erin Curtis in our gallery at Big Medium. This is at Canopy. And Erin did an amazing installation where she really, you know, through our desire for experimental art practice, she took over the front of the gallery space, this window display that you can see from the outside, but also experience from the inside. This is the view you're seeing from inside. And she has gone on to do a lot of other great large-scale installations of this nature. Next. And our work as an organization is really focused on connecting art and the built environment, not only in individual buildings, but also across the city. We do that through the studio tour. It provides opportunities for artists to showcase their work, and for an audience, for architects, designers, consultants, interior designers to get out and really see a unique breadth of the art being made in the city. And I believe we have some data, but it's also anecdotal, that this just leads to a lot of collaborations citywide and outside of the city. Of like, we just provide platforms and opportunities for our artists to be seen. And we love to convert space. We took this raw warehouse and turned it into an art space. And it's just a really amazing way to integrate art into unused spaces and bring audiences to it. We believe it also ultimately leads to leases being signed for people who want to take over the space or even buy spaces. And hopefully, more importantly, people buying art and engaging with our art community. And that's the West Austin Studio Tour. And next, and then here's our home at Canopy. And we take great pride in the work that Michael and his firm did here to create our home and a space that really welcomes a ton of people. We have 45 studios, 6 galleries, a cafe, a strong handful of creative office space and retail. And we've been integrating art across the site, design and wayfinding. And this here is an image of Blasto, a Mexican city-based artist who did work on one building space. And then recently we've added trailers, retail space trailers. And he came back from Mexico to do his work as well, so he can kind of connect the site through his murals. And with that, I'll call it done.
Thank you so much, Shay. It's awesome. So now I'm going to stop the slide sharing. I'm going to go back to our panel. And I want to encourage you to, I see that there's some, oh no, we don't have any questions in the Q&A. So if you could please add some questions there, that would be wonderful. And I'm going to check the chat as well. In the meantime, I'm going to pose a question to Michael first. And the question is, what is the role of the designer in soliciting artists for placemaking projects?
Well, I think the first part is you have to make space for art in projects. So that's just a philosophical position I think designers have to take. And it's one where it requires a little bit more humility. I think that instead of being in control of everything, what you're saying is that you're willing to give up some control so that the work itself can be more of a metaphor for life, meaning that it's going to be richer, more diverse, and less predictable. And sometimes the work that we do might even be in a little bit of tension with the works of the people that we collaborate with, and we actually enjoy that. So I think the first one is to sort of make space. And then, of course, it's creating a budget for those things so that you build it into the project, and then you protect those funds so that the artist can have a say-so in it. When it's a last-minute thing, it's much harder to accomplish. When it's not a part of the sort of front-end narrative of why artists should be in spaces, why craftspeople should be in spaces, it's a much tougher sort of sell. I think when it's sought after and approved on the front end, it's easier and better for everyone.
That's great. Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. The next question is for Valerie. What is it like from the artist side to work with architects and designers?
So in my experience thus far with working with architects, there's sort of upon initial interaction, there's already sort of a level of trust that's established because they are sort of coming to the artist with a level of with a foundation of knowledge of previous work, and so kind of, you know, the artist work speaks for itself to that point. They're being approached because there's a like-mindedness already established, and because there's kind of similar mindedness there, it just kind of allows the full effect of creativity to come through. And then getting to work, from my perspective, it's like getting to work in these beautifully designed spaces really just provides the perfect backdrop, the perfect, you know, sort of well-designed space as the canvas, which really just kind of enhances the work of everyone involved.
Thanks, Valerie. And then for Shay, I have a question for you. How can designers get connected to artists for their projects?
Yeah, to self-promote what I do, I think the East Austin Studio Tour, and we're ramping up for the Austin Studio Tour combined thing this coming weekend and the following, is a great way to get out there and talk to, you know, connect with a lot of artists. It really comes down to getting out into the community, whether it's through a studio tour or art openings or studio visits with different artists that you're familiar with or maybe want to get to know more. I think it just has to come through those conversations and connections.
I can sort of echo that, just because, you know, the first of my installation work really was fueled by my participation in the East Austin studio tour. I felt like the work that Big Medium does to provide that platform to artists and really allows the space to connect the community with artists. It encourages engagement and conversation and all sorts of connections that really just have like endless possibilities to lead to more collaboration and then just appreciation of the amazing art that exists in this town.
Yeah, thanks, Valerie. And I think that's how Michael and I got to know each other through the studio tour. So it doesn't have to be our studio tour, but it is getting out and connecting directly with artists one way or another.
As artists, what do you take into account when you're designing site-specific pieces?
For me, it's because I'm working with suspended pieces, a lot of it comes down to sort of the structural elements involved. I'm kind of sometimes very logistically limited in where a piece could go or how it could be shaped, depending on the availability of something to attach it to. So I'm always kind of going into a space with an open eye of like, you know, an exposed beam or some sort of, you know, like I'm asking where just kind of the full construction behind it. You know, I'm asking where we can, you know, bolt into a support beam or something so that it can really hold the weight of something. So structural elements for me.
Yeah, and one of the questions that's in our chat here is directed to you, saying most of your work is suspended. Is there a source of inspiration that drives that?
I think that working in weddings and establishing my portfolio in weddings, I just kind of wanted to break the mold a little bit. Sometimes there can just be a formula to weddings. You know, there's XYZ, you have to hit all the marks. And I just kind of wanted to provide an option for people that were looking to maybe not have like a super traditional looking event. And then the suspended pieces, it's exciting, it's challenging, it's working up on a ladder, and it's working against the clock even. There's a certain level of adrenaline that comes with kind of the unknown and just kind of trying to make it up as we go along a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. I'm gonna pull some from the Q&A here. So I'm gonna ask Michael to answer this one. It says, you have transformed spaces into amazing experiences, but now that we're mostly confined to our houses, how has your work shifted given the shift in the world due to COVID?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. We're doing much more residential work. I think the big shift I see isn't so much in the type of work, it's in the, I think everyone's sort of sense of like intimacy and coziness and familialness is so much more important. I think this has been a time of like checking in with yourself on, you know, what sort of deliberate life and deliberate sort of environment do I want to spend my time in, and makes me feel healthy. So I think that's where our work is concentrating. I think it's something that happened pre-COVID, this sort of idea that spaces can and must be about healthfulness and wellness, and that includes art. And that's why I think it's so lovely to have the sort of panelists that we have on today, especially Valerie, whose work is about, you know, using natural materials in settings where you don't expect it, in places where you don't expect it. And I think that these sort of questions are the ones that we're asking ourselves: is how do we create environments that sort of touch on the places and the things we can't experience right now firsthand, perhaps, or not as easily, and do it in a way that that you know is still available to us and we can connect with in just different methods through different people.
Great. I'll direct one to Shay. It's a bit open-ended, but what currently inspires you?
That is pretty open-ended. I guess I would echo some of what Michael said. And it's, you know, the silver linings of the pandemic have helped realign my thinking towards what's important and what I want around me. And I have shifted so much of my life towards big medium and towards supporting the art community to my administrative work, but I now know I need to make time for my own artistic practice. And so I think my inspiration is just coming from health and well-being and slowing down, trying to push back against where our society has just driven us to move so fast, so quickly to stay afloat, while I think we can slow down and actually focus on, actually like find that inspiration and build from health and wellness, as opposed to just following the hamster wheel, for lack of a better term.
All right, and I'm going to wrap up with just one last question to direct to all of you. How do you feel designers and clients can set artists and craftspeople up for success in collaborative projects?
I think it's just starting the conversation and kind of, Michael mentioned this before, kind of getting in from the ground level. As long as that relationship is kind of established from the start, there can be a really beautiful collaborative process of making sure that every step along the way, everyone kind of has what they need to ensure that their final product is going to be the most impactful that it can be.
Yeah, and I'll build off of that. And again, I think Michael has wise words around it. It's space and budget, and even the forethought to a design that could potentially integrate a specific artist, say Valerie, to know of her work and to be able to say, we can make space for a work by her, it just has to be from the beginning, because the budget will get cut and the space could get changed unless you make it a core part of what you're doing.
All right. With that, I just want to say thank you to all the panelists. This was awesome. Thank you to Austin Design Week. I think this was a great discussion. So many good questions. I'm sorry I couldn't even get close to all of them, but this was so great to hear from all of you. And special shout out to Beth Sims with our office too for facilitating. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.